yes, baby. You best believe we're back. I cannot believe it. It's episode 21 of the Clever Dummies podcast. I got an idea, though. Let's call this season 2, episode 1. I'm your host, Lockie. It's been a long time between drinks, but I'm so glad to be back here with you, my friend. How are you going today, Anik?
I'm great. It's good to be here. It's good to be doing this podcast as a return season because we have gained funding once again. I'm joking. We're not funding. It's good to be back. It's good to be back.
I think we've finished a suspension. Maybe we'll call that. We got barred.
And, we got barred from Spotify.
New management at Zencaster, and we're good to go again.
That's it. So Clever Dummies podcast and the Zencaster software under new management. So just got renewed for season 2, Clever Dummies podcast, leveling up here, baby. It's good to be back here because we are at the same place, roughly the same time when we first released our first episode of Clever Dummies podcast. So it's kind of a full circle. And for those who were paying attention in high school English, that's kind of a juxtaposition, if you will.
Yeah, same, but different. It was early January of last year. Obviously, we've all made it through a very big and very trying 2020. And on the one hand, we're proud and I'm excited for the 20 episodes we've got under our belt so far. But we've only just cracked the can of the Clever Dummies podcast, and it's time to pour out the jug a little bit more into everybody's ear holes and let the art flow a little bit more, if you will. So let's get the ball rolling, my buddy. And I think we just let's just pick up kind of where we left off. And I guess we can kind of give a little update on how we've been, what we've been up to. I feel like your circumstance is the one that's most prevalent right now because it's crazy and or chaotic. So if you wanted to get underway, you're more than welcome to, my dude.
Will do. Just before I get into it, so just quickly wanted to say, although this is episode number 21 or the first episode of season 2, technically there's more episodes that we haven't released yet, but we'll try to get like a director's cut or whatever you were saying. What do we want to call it? At the episodes, there's just some episodes bloopers, not nearly bloopers because they're full episodes. I just didn't think they deserved to be in the episode, if you will. So we might get those up as well because content is content. So you can check those out as well. Just remember, we are on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and you can always Google us, the cleverdummies.podcast.com. So which is awesome. And, if you have any question, any topics you want to talk about, please always hit us up on Instagram, IG. You got the Facebooks, Twitter. You just look us up for once. It'll be nice. So anyway, moving on to the current situation. So Happy New Year's. It's good to be back. No one called 2021 their year, but you know what? Screw it. I'm going to call it our year anyway. So it's going to be a great year. So I have high hopes. Although in saying that, I'm kind of... So late last year, I took off on a little bit of a trip. Ended up north of Melbourne, up towards Lachlan, in Coffs Harbour. Drove up to Byron as well, which is beautiful. It was a nice.
Yeah, that was your first time out of Melbourne, wasn't it?
That's right. It was
been there for quite what it would have been, obviously pre-COVID. So
yeah, pre-COVID. So roughly after 7 months in Melbourne, borders opened up. I took a drive up towards north, went and saw Lachlan, saw my parents, went up to north coast, and then ended up back at my parents in Sydney. And then what do you know? I get locked down into Sydney and I couldn't go back to Melbourne. At the moment, I'm in the process of moving back to Sydney just because I thought it was nice to spend more time with family and friends because being in Melbourne is incredible. I love Melbourne. Melbourne is a beautiful city, but there's something about trying to stay with your friends and family as well, especially after the year we've had last year, 2020. But now, then I drove...
It was a good reminder, wasn't it, eh? Good reminder of maybe some of the important things in life. Just spin it positively.
Well, that's exactly right. That's what I'm doing, spinning it positively.
And, you were like, go back down, see the boys. We'll get back in Melbourne. I'll just dip my toe in there. A couple of days later, one case, and Dr. Dan swings that guillotine straight over it.
It is. That's exactly what happened. I was like, I'm going to go back down to Melbourne, quickly suss out how everything's going, wrap up a few things, pack up my shit, head back down to Sydney. I was only going to be here for a week and a half or a week, but I'm here now. I can't go back to Sydney because, Dr. Dan kind of locked us up again. I mean, I get it. I get certain aspect of it. But also, maybe we don't speculate from a government's point of view, but then why would we be here? So we are going to do exactly that. We're going to
Yeah.
speculate. I just want to say Sydney had the similar sort of cases situation going on, but somehow they managed it. They looked up northern suburbs of Sydney, and then they said rest of the town was fine to move around. But Melbourne had similar sort of situation, and they said, you know what? This is it. Everyone goes down into a lockdown for 5 days, allegedly for 5 days. The reason I say allegedly because there's been a rumor going around saying that Dr. Dan is considering extending the lockdown for another couple of weeks.
Oh, well, that's right. 2 weeks to flatten the curve, wasn't it?
2 weeks to flatten the curve. So
no, I think they're going to be less likely to go all out there. They're hopefully better prepared, and we know the source of where these latest instances have come from, hotel quarantine. So, it's now more than ever, it's time to figure that situation out. But hey, unfortunately, you're in a situation where you don't know what's going to happen, and they kind of don't know what they're doing either. So hopefully, for your own sake and for every single person still in Melbourne, those soldiers that decided against the urge to leave, when I know many people did, 500,000, something like that, hopefully for their sake, and for the Australian Open too, one of the biggest Australian sporting events of the year. For me, it makes me realize how much I resent tennis. Like, I love playing it. It's fun to get out there and slap it around a bit, but just something about what it brings, I don't know. It just doesn't do it for me. I don't like it. But hey, it's pretty chaotic. Yeah.
It's a weird sport, isn't it? Like, wait till people start getting upset, but it's always seemed like it's an unusual sport. I know people bag on cricket of their fitness levels, but I always thought tennis kind of required a very minimal fitness level.
I'm never going to let that go. Miss Lawson's rant that day. I'm never going to let that go.
Oh, Miss Lawson. Miss Lawson, shout out to you. She's actually the deputy principal of the school now.
Yeah, good old Pumpkin. She's ripping and tearing. But yeah, she taught us in PDH in high school, to give a little bit of backstory there. And one day she, very opinionated, strong woman. She's, actually probably an inspiration now that I look back and think about it.
She's probably one of my favorite teacher and an inspiration. Yeah.
Appreciate her as much as maybe I could have back in the days. But yeah, one day she decided to just rip on us about playing cricket and how it's not a professional sport and the athletes don't have to be in shape. If you have a look at prime Shane Warne, I can understand how you believe that. But regardless, that little odd comment you just made then about cricket is like, only the other week I was thinking about it too. And something about her little speech here just has stuck in my head. And
100%.
It's just, I'll see her one day and then maybe we can have we can continue the discussion. Shout out to Miss Lawson.
We can have shout out. Shout out to Miss Lawson. But yeah, it's I just don't know. It just doesn't seem like a sport that requires very high amount of. Sure, it probably requires some level of cardio, but I don't see.
Ooh, yeah, no, they're long games too. The thing about it, like three or four matches, I think, which is the sets, which is like the 6 sets to win. You've got to get to 6 first. If it's like 6 and 5, you've got to be 2 points ahead, something like that. There's 3 of those. A lot of the females only play 2 sets. If you win the 2, you win. Males have to play to 3, which is kind of weird. I feel like that's, we're in a stage now where that should change and we should be playing the even, but they can easily go for 3, 4, 5, 6 hours like that. And that's just, it's very aerobic and anaerobic at the same time. Like, there's a lot of fast twitch. You've got to be constantly ready to go. And if you ever seen a tennis match live, like, that ball is traveling hundreds of Ks an hour, like, it's fucking moving as well, so
almost kind of like cricket.
Yeah, well, that's right. It's just and it is what it is. Like, Rod Laver Arena is a beautiful arena, but it's the perfect example of what a good tennis stadium is. Like, there's not a lot of breeze in there. Like, that's just a big suction of just warm air circling around. So I think I'll have to disagree with you in regards to the fitness. I think they're all pretty shredded. Like, they have to be in great condition for the sport. I don't know what it is for me. I've just never liked the way it's covered on TV. I've never liked it. Just doesn't do a lot for me in terms of a desire to go watch it. And like, I appreciate the sport for what it is, but I just don't like the whole coverage with it. I worked in the betting agency for a little bit as well. I didn't like the gambling side of it. It just was it's a really weird sport with a lot of the rules internal, how matches are played and how the world ranking. It's just, I just don't like the way it's run. and then there's something about the culture that it brings, like its fan base, that turns me off it. A lot of people feel the same way about like the UFC, for example, too. So each to their own, I guess.
I guess maybe it's just not our sport.
Yeah, well, that's
Put it
right,
that
baby.
way. Just here at the Clever Dummies podcast, we do not endorse the
yeah.
Australian Open.
And
Actually,
you
no,
won't-
we do. It's an Australian sporting event, so look, anything
Sure.
else, anything with Australian name on it.
Yeah.
we
You know,
endorse.
you won't see me watch it down the V8s, but hey, you know, if you want to
That's
crack
exactly
a can,
right.
get amongst it, it's up to you, big. Anyway,
Well,
let's
that's
continue.
that's exactly right. So, here we are. So this is the kind of the situation. So it's a little bit of a, I guess you could say it's a grind my gear session, almost shout back to the old Sounds of Summer days. But
Yeah, that's going back.
but it is. Dare I say, it is what it is.
Do you know what we've got about 100 untapped followers on that Facebook page. We could capitalize on. Maybe that's a
Yeah, might as well. Yeah, I think we might.
Petty back in there. Just start them in.
Yeah, I think we merged the page with our Clever Dummies page, so that, carry those people around
It's
across.
like if you subscribe to someone on YouTube and they're into like sport coverage. Like I've watched a few people that like they talk about sports or gaming or something else, and then you don't watch them for 3 months, and you come back and they're like wearing "Make America Great Again" hats, and then they don't even tell you they changed the name of their channel. It's just like, what the fuck? I never subscribed to this, but
I'll tell
it's
you
a good
who-
way to do it. I guess.
It's
Elliot
a good
Hulse, bro.
Elliot Hulse. I was just about to say, man, that dude
Yeah.
took the biggest 360 in the
Crazy.
entire world.
And hey, there's actually a really good video out there that goes for about an hour and a half. There's a guy who went through the evolution of Elliot Hulse from back in about 2008 when he first started making the videos right until now. He's actually had about 6 or 7 shifts. It's actually really interesting. I might even send that to you later. It's actually crazy, but yeah, now more than ever, it's like he's
part of the
selling
KKK.
Yeah,
He is. He has to be.
I wouldn't say that, but he's like he's got like the way he makes his money now. He's come out with this book about like masculinity, and he's teaching blokes to be real men again. Like it's pretty crazy. It is crazy.
Yeah, like I mean, some at the beginning of when he used to do strength camp and all those boot camp stuff, and he used to talk about breathe with your balls and breathing into your balls and like speaking slower and that's as signs of masculinity. I was like, that makes sense. Everyone should speak slower and speak from the balls and all that stuff, right? That made sense. Speak from the diaphragm.
Hey, like 100%. That's something I took from big time.
Yeah. 100%. Same here. And now he's going into this thing. I saw this post about how he doesn't let his wife work for anyone else because, he doesn't want his wife to cheat on him. I was like, what the hell? This dude crazy, man. What's wrong with him?
Yeah.
He's
some of his Q&As as well, where you see what he's like, you can kind of tell a lot by people, and not always like you're going to attract a certain type of audience, but the questions he gets asked, and you can just kind of get an understanding of the people that are following him as well and what they're after too. But through the video, you could see he was like, I kind of stopped watching him maybe at the end of high school, just like 2013. After that stage, he actually went like really feminine for like a year, like legit went like fully feminist. He grew his hair out, didn't put the training videos anymore. Then he stopped that. He became a shaman, so he became like this spiritual leader. Started talking about like a lot of Buddhist teachings and techniques. And then he had some time off, and then he kind of went back to strength. And then now it's really interesting. And to his credit, like he's actually never shied away from it. He just said like, I'm constantly evolving as a person. And I think the climate we live in now, maybe to segue out of it a little bit, the climate we live in now are forcing a lot of people to maybe ask themselves those questions, like the life, like there's no better time than the time that you're actually forced to do it. You've got time to think, or people are losing work or whatever else. Like, who's the person I actually want to become? Who are the people I want to associate myself with? What media do I want to consume? That sort of thing. And I feel like I've seen a lot of shift in a lot of other people, even in my personal life as well. Constant evolution. So it's interesting again.
That's a very well put together thought there, Lachlan. It's actually very true. When you put it like that, that actually kind of makes a lot of sense. And actually, funny enough, when you put it like that, it actually kind of adds a little bit of, you almost kind of feel, not necessarily sorry, but you feel, you empathize, or, you feel empathy towards what anyone is going through, which is exactly what you want. But the interesting thing that I was going to say was, and this kind of brings me back to, I think we've spoken about this. So Fight Club is probably one of the all-time greatest films of all time ever made. right? So
I
there
mean,
was
Brad
this
Pitt
little
ages like wine, like he's a beautiful man, but
He's a
that was truly prime Brad Pitt, wasn't it? Late 90s,
Oh man,
Shred
he was so
City.
brilliant in Shred City. So there's this speech. So I'm gonna quickly read it out. So I'm gonna do a horrible job at it. I'm not gonna do him justice, but I'm gonna read it out anyway because this reminded me of that particular speech. Soon as you said that, it said, "It says, man, I see Fight Club the strongest. Oh yeah, men I see at the Fight Clubs are the strongest and smartest men who ever lived. I see all this potential. I see smartness. God damn it, an entire generation of pumping gas waiting. Tables shaved, white collars, advertisement jobs. Okay, I'll get to the main part. This is we
That's
heard
right. Read it
this.
all, bro.
Okay, go. All right. Men,
You
I
start
see in
skipping
Fight
over
Club.
it.
All right. Men, I see in the Fight Club the strongest and the smartest men who have ever lived. I see this potential. I see squandering. God damn it, an entire generation of pumping gas, waiting tables, slaving with white collar jobs. Advertising has us chasing cars, clothes, working jobs we hate, jobs we hate. So we can buy this shit that we don't care about. We are in the middle of a children we are the middle children of history. No no purpose or place. We have no great war, no great depression. Our great war is the spiritual war. Our our great depression is our lives. We've all been raised on television to believe that one day we'll all be millionaires and the movie gods and the rock stars, but we won't, and we are all slowly learning the fact, and we are very pissed off about it. So this particular speech, right? And like I said before, I probably didn't do it justice because it's not written well. It's written without all the punctuation. So I was trying to figure it out. Anyway, so
Yeah, yeah. And
what
it's
I
the
really
context
like
of a movie as well. So
the
he's
context
acting
of the
that.
film, yeah.
Yeah.
So when he talks about this, and I really like this because this is so almost like so this actually I would say this speech was relevant all the way through till COVID-19. So because we talked about this before, it's been such a long time. Something horrendous had happened before, like COVID-19, and there was no Great War. You know, we all did that. We all think we're going to be millionaires, the movie gods and the rock stars. And it's true that our war is the spiritual war. That's why people like Elliot Hose go into this spiritual war, if you will. Where they're trying to figure out who they are. Maybe they're the person with the feminine one, or maybe they're the masculine one, or maybe they're part of the KKK clan, KKK, right? Who the hell knows, right? But it's interesting because I think that film is still so relevant because it just makes sense when you look at it from that angle,
And Tifa, the Proud Boys. Who else is there? And it's crazy because and there's a lot to unpack about that speech, and it was a really great moment. If anyone's not seen it, it's just a bit of a timeless movie. It's heaps of movies you go back and you watch and you kind of you enjoy it, but you're like, man, that hasn't aged well. That one really has. And the poignant moment in that movie kind of was that speech as well, and it was kind of like him. He'd gone into this underworld that he, from the outside looking in, was just these criminals and thugs who are just fighting, but ultimately they're actually going back almost in time. In a way, they were going back to a primal time in human existence where they were just fighting. Like, it was, forget about, I don't care what you do for work, I don't care, the color of your skin, the creed, everything else. It's can you fight? Can you how much heart are you willing to show when the adversity comes and everything else? And so many great scenes in that movie as well. And I think that's what this time has proven, and what this kind has done in a lot of good ways too. There are so many bad things, and there's a lot of people out there who are trying to capitalize on that, the negativity of the current situation. But at the same time, there's a lot of people who are being forced to reevaluate their lives, the way they think, the people they act or around and act with, and everything else. So it's it's just one of those things, and something we always speak about. It's just about constantly trying to get to that point where you're trying to achieve something, you're trying to strive to be better. We always have those setbacks, but your mindset has to be ahead in that regard, because if you live too far, if you're too reactive in the moment, then any bad thing every day can change your entire day. at the same time, you need to live your life in the moment where you spend too much time. The opposite of that as well. But you need to be in the moment, and you need to be ahead as well. And you need to not let the outside. You need to be like an analyst of your outside world and try to think about those things and react and try to realize and try to rationalize with people and understand why people are doing what they're doing as well. And you can be super empathetic as well. A lot of the things that, and I'm kind of going on a little bit of a tangent here, but like there's so many things that I've heard Gary Vee say over the years, and some things make a lot of sense at the time, at the moment, and some things it's like he talks a lot about empathy and talks a lot about showing compassion and those sort of things. And it's kind of like, well, why is, he's a business guy. Why is this at the forefront of what he's talking about? It's because when you get to that state of practice of being in an empathetic mindset and you actually start to embody empathy in your life, you actually realize like you start to be more forgiving of people's circumstances, but you also start to safeguard yourself and not put yourself in those situations where you can be affected by them as well. So it's really amazing what the constant like being about that life, if you will, trying to constantly evolve and get better. It's amazing how these areas, it's like it's not on our time frame. Like I'm going to go back to God here, but He's got a plan for us. We've got to live our life, and we're going to meet these points, and we're going to meet these people. We can shift and move around when it comes, but we can't try to force these things. But we just got to get on that right track. And it's amazing how these little things comes up. And maybe in March and April, May, when the lockdowns were coming in and everything else, it was like the end of the world. And now, sure, it's something we're used to, so we have prior experience we can lean on, and hey, it's not the end of the world. But now it just is what it is. We just got to get through it. You got to deal with it, and you got to move on. So it's that movie, I just thinking about watching that movie again. I actually want to redo it because it's such a great movie. There's
it's such a great film. It's one of the greatest
gems and nuggets in.
If you want to check out any of the summary notes, it will be available on our podcast website, cleverdubmiespodcast.com. If anyone wants to check out. Continuous plug. I'm shameless now. Anyway, on that note, actually brings me to a little note that I actually kind of took before the other day. In fact, I've got two notes to actually just quickly talk about. Right. So this is a quote from actually, funny enough, both of them from Marcus Aurelius. Marcus Aurelius was emperor of the Roman leader, one of the Romans leaders. I think Roman. Yeah, I think it would have been one of the Romans leaders. So he was into what do they call it? The philosophy, the ancient philosophy. The whatever they call it. Seneca was the same philosopher. Those from that era, there's a name for him, right? I keep forgetting what the name is for him, all right? Anyway, Seneca was one of the
word association. Where is it from? Is it a certain period of time? Is it a certain part of the world?
Seneca, Marcus Aurelius was the same kind of. It's a type of philosophy. Damn it, I'm just completely blanking out. Anyway, we'll get to that. So the first note is, when we forget our ability to choose, we learn to be helpless. Drip by drip, we allow our power to be taken away until we end up becoming a function of other people's choice, or even a function of our own past choices. So kind of what we talked about there, it's like, if once we start forgetting and start letting go of that, letting go of our why or what we function for, two things happen. One thing, we let our circumstances or our other people define us, who we end up becoming. So would take Elliot Horst, for example. Perhaps his spiritual war is because he probably doesn't have a strong self-identity, so he's so forever changing. Where, I'm not saying that we are probably the strongest mentally people, but you listen to this podcast over the year, relatively we maintain the same sort of mental positioning on things and a mental strength. This is similar. It's been pretty constant, right? I hope it stays the same. So just an example of that is, perhaps I'm not saying we are strong, but I'm saying that's probably more reflective of the fact that, everyone should change with time. Everyone should develop with time. You should always become better, but you can't lose that identity, and identity, once again, for those people who paid attention in high school, identity is dynamic. I can't argue with that. However, there is the core values can't continuously change, especially when you go into those contradictory moments, and especially when you're defined by your situations, or like this says, once once we get hopeless and we let circumstances or other people take away our ability to choose, and that's when we become hopeless or just a function of other people's choices or our past, which is interesting when you put it like that, because I think I can't remember who it was, but they said you always have an ability to choose. That's one thing that no one can ever take away from you. You can choose how you react to things. You could be, I think it might have been Theodore Roosevelt who said, we always have our ability to choose. We could be in a war camp. We still have an ability to choose how we react to that. We can smile and so to speak and whatnot. So that's the first one. So which is really interesting. Once again, kind of, hits on what we're talking about. The second one, once again, from Marcus Aurelius, he was a philosopher, a great philosopher. So this is what you were talking about in regards to feeling empathy. His quote goes, "To feel affection for people, even when they make mistakes, is uniquely human. You can do it if you simply recognize that they are human too, that they act out of ignorance against their will, that you'll both be dead before long, and above all, that they haven't really hurt you. They haven't demised your ability to choose." So they're both kind of the same. But what they're saying is, you can feel affection or, so to speak, empathy for people by just realizing that us two are humans, and no one really gets up in the morning and tries to hurt other people, although there are some very uh, evil people out there. But I think majority of humans are pretty relatively harmless, and they don't want to do harm. I think they're just acting out of ignorance. So those things are important to remember when you're trying to employ empathy. And like Gary Vee talks about it, like you said, modern business right now is in so much need of empathy. So that's the reason why Gary Vee is actually doing so great, because he gets it.
That's right. Yeah, he associates himself with people, and he's at a point now where he can, he can be his own boss. So he doesn't have to bend the knee to corporation and everything else. He can go out and do and say whatever he wants. It just so happens that he's a really good person, and what he's trying to do is not just build an empire for himself and his family, but also better other people and bring other people along the way. And money, even though it's a part of the journey, it's not the root of anything he's doing. So. The great Bible verse, money is the root of all evil. So you'll see that across the board, and there's various forms of evil as well, and there's various forms of bad people. There's people that are just shitty, and then there's actually bad people, and it's easy to think that more people are bad than not. Not really. Like, it's a very small percentage of the population that do those monstrous things, and most people can just deal with a shitty person during the day. And it's as you said, it's like the times like these that we're forced to confront. We're kind of forced to confront our beliefs and kind of nail down what we believe in the position that we need to be in, and you can really practice a lot of these things as well, the empathy and it's just the same as getting your routine and doing exercise every day or being in a better state of mind. You can practice just about anything, and the more you do it, the more it becomes a fabric in your life, and then your natural reaction to things is to be empathetic and not reactive and not responsive in a way that's like, oh, why did they do that for? Or hey, why did they do that for? And then you can kind of change the angle there. And I did philosophy a little bit as well. So I was just trying to think who it was, Marcus Aurelius. So he's a Roman emperor. And he was a philosopher as well. He had so many personal writings that we studied, I'm sure, and have been studied for history, known as meditations. So it's kind of what
meditation by
wanted
Marcus
to
Aurelius.
Yeah. So it's a really good book. I highly recommend to people out there as well. It was like you mentioned his name, and I'm like, I knew it's down there. It's very funny with doing a podcast. It's like anything, you've got to practice it.
Stoic philosophers. Stoicism.
Stoicism.
Yeah, he's a Roman emperor.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where, like, the ability to speak doesn't leave, but your ability to recall specific information and like almost reference, that's something you have to practice. Like, you can think about things and, you're constantly having these conversations throughout the day, or if you're having, you're doing whatever, like you're consuming that type of media, you can do it really easily, but to recall the specifics is a lot harder. And that's what I'm noticing even doing this podcast now. It's like, that's something we need to keep working on because it comes more natural and everything else. But it's a little side note. But hopefully people can follow along with where we are anyway. But no, beautifully put there, mate. And I hope we all sort of linked it back together a little bit there for the people out there listening. Just about to hit 30 minutes now. So that's kind of reel it back in and draw it back to where we started. So, and you can take this, I guess, however way you want to. You can shift it back to me. It's totally up to you. But, you know, you've gone back down to Melbourne. You've gone to see people. You've gone to check out your old family, friends, business, everything else, and bang, this thing happens. What was your immediate reaction when you found out, hey, like, I just walked into a shitstorm?
Well, I thought to myself, I was like, good. I can deal with the shitty situation a bit later.
Jocko Willing, good. Have you heard that speech?
Yeah, good. I honestly, look, my first thought honestly was, I was like, oh, for fuck's sake, here we go again. But my second thoughts, and this is 100% true. Whether you believe me or not, that's up to you. But I was like, thinking to myself, I was like, you know what? There's more time to just kind of easily pack my situation up, like, you know, not rush things through, kind of sort out affairs, and, you know, so the 5 days. Hopefully, if it's all it is, 5 days, and, you know, maybe half a week more, whatever. It's easy. So at the moment, I'm positive, which is fine because kind of gives me a time to pack up and like be in the right headspace to move. So which is good. Now, it is still shitty, but whatever, right? So I'm good.
Yeah, so
good.
technically you still were living in Melbourne, even though you'd spent the last few months in Sydney. You still hadn't fully left Melbourne, so it's kind of coming back home still a little bit, right?
Yes, that's right. So it kind of gives me that headroom, and it was nice to kind of, you know, have room, especially staying with my parents in Sydney. So yeah, it's kind of good to have your own breathing area, so which is nice.
Do you want to elaborate on that, mate, or just sweep that under the rug?
I'm just going to sweep that one under the rug for people.
Let that one go for the keeper. Right?
Let that one go for let that one go to the keeper. You know, sometimes you're playing a test match, you got to let few through the.
Yeah, we're here for a long time, not a short time.
That's
maybe.
Right. That's right. All right. So talking about cricket, let's drive one through the covers and you know, put one to you. How are you going? What's going on? To give us a little bit of a wrap up.
Yeah,
of, what you've been up to.
Yeah, most definitely, bro. I've been really good, and it's pretty crazy how quick the years go and how quick last year's gone. And it's one of those things. Collectively, we all heard of our parents growing up was like, "Oh, time just flies," and you were in nappies 3 months ago. It's like, yeah, whatever, old person, go away. Like, I'm leave me alone.
You don't get it,
man,
yeah.
It is so true. You need to experience that in yourself, and it's just so many things, particularly with being a parent now, being a dad. But there's just so many things about getting older where you realize how much you emulated of your life of your parents, for sure, but how much like a lot of their little things they would say just were because of the life experience was so true. And obviously Abby's just turned 7 months now on Valentine's Day, and I was having a conversation with someone at work about, oh, it's so cute. I find that new parents talk about the month anniversaries, and I was always the same way. I was like, oh, what are these people doing 4 months celebrating 2 months? It's like, what's going on? And it's just, the easiest way to put it is you're celebrating the most amazing moment in your life. So you're going to want to recall that memory and that feeling as much as you can. And you see them, particularly in the first few years, you see them grow up so quickly that it's just like every month is like this new big adventure. So for anyone out there who sees a post like I did and used to think, oh, what, 4 months, what are you celebrating? Trust me, when you go for it, you'll completely understand. So that's been really amazing seeing the way I've had to develop both with my relationship with Charlotte, with me as a person, and seeing Abby develop around me. I've just finished my I was doing anatomy this semester, so I did summer at uni because I'm studying part-time, so I'm just trying to get as much in as I can because it's going to be longer than 3 years, obviously. So I just finished anatomy. That was really intense, really hectic. It was one of those things where like I knew I needed to do it. I'd put it off for about a year or so, and then finally got in amongst it, got it done, like learning about the body, the 12 different systems from the skeletal system, osteology, the study of bones, to the muscular system, to digestive, to cardiovascular, to lymphatic, to to digestive. I probably said that to the central nervous system, like just so many amazing things. It's like I still don't fully know, like I know anything, but that's what everyone says collectively is like all you've got to do. And I had 2 exams today. Is like all you've got to do is recall what you kind of learnt because you need to get these exams done well. And I kind of have a goal set for myself where I've had a few really good grades and I want to keep that going. And it's all matched with effort as well. And this one was really hard, but it was like 12, 18, 2 years ago, 18 months, 2 years ago, I wouldn't have been able to do this unit. I just wouldn't have been able to focus for long enough. I would have just pulled the plug early and I was able to get through it without, it was hard and it was uncomfortable, but at no point did I ever want to quit. So I was really happy with myself there. So I have another exam on Wednesday. I should get my grades back in a couple of weeks, which I'm really excited about. I should definitely get at least a credit, which is for an anatomy unit. Anyone who's done any sort of health science or any medicine or anything like that, they'll tell you that first year of anatomy is just, people are just like, oh, that was so intense. So I'm really happy with that. I'm going to go basically straight back into first semester in a couple of weeks. That's the only downside about doing summer school is you don't actually get like that time off, but I'm kind of loving it too. And then obviously been having working at the golf course up here and working at the gym as well. It's been really amazing to get better, not just my knowledge of training and my knowledge of the human body, but also of how to teach people and how to run a class. And because we do group kickboxing and group strength and conditioning classes at the gym up here. So that's been really great. And I started that the week before COVID, and now we had some time off and I went back and I've kind of been doing it every week for like the last 8 months and just getting better and better at that. So that's been really cool. And then just getting back into my own personal training as well. I was talking to you about I started retracking my calories again through MyFitnessPal, really good app that anyone out there who wants to lose weight and are having difficulty with it, they just don't know how much to eat. It's a really good, it's only about $15 a month. Like it is something you have to pay for, but we all have Netflix, we all have Spotify, we all have these things we pay for and, we kind of waste time on. It's an investment I couldn't highly recommend. And there's so many other ones, like you can go through 4 or 5 different platforms that are really good. I just really like this one because I've used it before.
I think MyFitnessPal is probably overall the best one there is.
Yeah,
right,
you can you scan, if you're eating anything with a package on it, you scan the barcode, it goes straight in. It's even HelloFresh, right? So we have HelloFresh 5 or 6 nights a week. They have that all on there. There's just got a massive database. It's really quick and easy. Like it's pretty accurate as well. It links up with all your devices. So I've got my Apple Watch that I use to track my workouts. So it links that up. So I know kind of my calorie amount I've got that to deal with. It's like a math equation and I'm not going to be on it forever. Like I was at a point when I lost the weight originally about 12, 18 months ago. Yeah, it was like the back end of 2019 where I really got extreme with it. And I was like, I wasn't not letting myself eat in certain foods and I was being really hard on myself if I ever did. And that's just a learning experience. I'm realizing now, like the relationship that we have good and bad with food, like even the word like cheat meals, right? Like there's no such thing as a cheat meal. You're just eating food that has calories, that has nutrients, that has everything in there. If you restrict all those sort of things to one day a week, or you don't even let yourself have it, or you're cutting that off so much that's why people lose weight or they do really well for a few months and then they just charge back in, like something happens, little fucking bump in the road of life, and then they just get back on it. It's because we're like being too controlling with our food. I pretty much still eat whatever I want. I just keep an eye on it. I track it. That's what I think is the best part about the app. You can know exactly what was in there and you kind of manage it. Okay, I might have a smaller breakfast or the next few days I'll just be really good. So that's been really great. And it's also learning, it's about learning what's in certain foods and how much like we actually eat, like how the reason why obesity has never been as big and like it's more prevalent now than it's ever been. It's not just the access we have to really bad foods, but it's the quantity in those foods, like how big serving sizes are, the amount of added things in foods that just jack the calories up. Ultimately it's just one of those things where once you're aware of it, you kind of realize that it's just like anything. You become aware of how that system works and you educate yourself on it. And that's a beautiful thing about life as well. The more things you learn, like the better control you get out of it. And yeah, so that's been really good. And just been plodding away, mate. If I'm being perfectly honest, like I've just feeling like my maturity is leveling up a fair bit as well, but dealing with plenty of adversity with raising a child and with these studies and everything else. That my life is like I've been way less emotional. I've not let myself get too high or too low. I'm just trying to learn to understand and regulate those things. And just I had a personality, and I still do, but I used to have a really strong personality where I'd come out of the gates hot. Like I'd come into social settings, or I'd come into work like trying to attack the day. All right, let's go, let's pump it, let's go. And then I'd have like days I didn't feel like it, and I'm just like, oh man, I can't do that. And because I can't do that, I felt like I was failing myself. And I'm just like, nah, just go with how you're feeling. Do what you need to do. So be disciplined to do it. But if today's a day you're not feeling the best, it's okay. Just show up and do your best. And it's all like that. So I'm just trying to work with those little thoughts bounce around in my head. And I feel like I've been a lot more level and everything else. Like, but most people don't know this about me, but I actually suffer like a lot of social anxiety. Like I've always have like social settings I've always really struggled with it, but I've been outward and kind of upbeat about it, and people think, oh, he just enjoys it, he's really natural. It's actually really uncomfortable for me, and I'm getting to an age now where I'm actually starting to realize that and learn and understand it. And as soon as you recognize it, it like explains so many different things, and that's something that's caused a fluctuation in the way I've lived my life for so long, that now that I've been made aware of it and then now I understand it, I feel like it's really good. It's the only way to do it is like you're on the highway and you just cruise, and things come in your way and they don't mean shit. You just keep going forward. You keep the right people and the right things in your life, and yeah, things are getting better. So yeah, that's a bit of a summary there, mate.
A lot to unpack there. So I'm going to quickly touch on a few topics. First of all, I want to say, Lachlan, I've practically grown up with you, right? So
yeah,
I mean,
well, that was one thing I didn't want to do coming back here, was to rant. I felt like ranting is too chaotic, but it is what it is. So that's kind of our podcast.
No, I don't think that was a rant. I think that was a very
well, you did
nice.
ask the question about.
I did ask the question. So, no, it's fine. It's fine. So there's a lot to unpack here, but so I just want to say I've known you we've basically grown up together, right? So although despite the fact that we were 16 or whatever it was, right, when we met, it's almost been that 10-year where we've known each other, right? And then these are the real crucial years where you form your personality, because a 16-year-old child is a child, right? That's exactly what it is. And I've seen you grown into the person you are today, and as a friend, I couldn't be more proud in any by all means, right? I think you're an incredible human. The human you have become. You've become more compassionate. I've seen you become more compassionate, more thorough, and more deliberate. And the reason I use the word deliberate very deliberately, because often many people live their lives as an accident, right? Going with the flow is great, but they really just go with the flow. When I say they don't do things because that's what needs to be done. They do things because that's what's immediate, so I think I've seen you become that person who is deliberate, thorough, intelligent and compassionate. I think I'm very proud of you as a human, and all I can see is you just getting better by the day. So congratulations on that. Couldn't be more proud. So and
I appreciate
also,
hearing that, brother.
Ever since you had Abby as well, I've seen changes in you. Even in your language, you swear less, which is something so small. But
I going to church has been a big thing as well, because I realized how much I did it like subconsciously and in settings that didn't need it. Like, hey, I'll always be a firm believer in a good swear word. Don't get me wrong; it has a time and a place as long as the intentions are there. But I didn't realize how bad it was. Hey.
Yeah, I think swearing is an intelligent man's language. It's an intelligent man language, right? It's just fucking horrible, man. I'll tell you what, fuck this situation. But it's great. Second thing I was gonna say was, and you're absolutely right. Seeing that, and the other day I just had this realization a few days ago. When my parents moved to Australia, my mom was roughly the same age as I am today.
Yeah, wow.
And that hit me, and I was like, holy shit. My mom had 3 kids at that point, and she's dealing with a new country and like doing all these things and bought a house and all, like, so just thinking about that, you go, holy shit. Like, I haven't had that realization of having a child. So I'm trying to relate that to realizing that how quickly time passes. It doesn't seem that long, but it really has that, it's insane.
Yeah.
And so there's a little note there. And in regards to the fitness, right? So when I moved back to Sydney and I was training really hard, and I did the same thing. I've changed my relationship with food, and the reason I've been calling it relationship, where first one thing that I have done, I've stopped romanticizing food. That's one thing that I have stopped doing. Food's great. I love food. I love tasting new food, but I have stopped romanticizing it and stopped using the words like, oh yeah, I want to get ice cream, or like, I want that, putting that romanticism into food of the, the modern things that have been driven by, things like, oh, Ben and Jerry's, Netflix, and ice cream chills, because I know better than anyone else those are marketing tactics. So I'm trying to stop romanticizing food as well. However, in the past, I dropped down to almost 72 kilos from 84 kilos from being max in the peak of lockdown, right? And down to 74 kilos. So almost a 10 kilo down. And then I started training and I started eating normal, right? And this is the first time I've been as strong as I was roughly 3 years ago. So it's good to have my strength back. Like at the moment, I think I hit like, try and start crossing over to that 160 deadlift area. And then, 160 deadlifts, 50 plus chest press,
the chest
110 kilo. Yeah.
That was always, that was always your natural strength, was your strength.
Yeah,
but
that's right.
Very quickly into training, like that was your bread and butter, wasn't it?
My chest press
bastard.
Yeah. So my squat is back up to like, the 120, 130 kilo plus. So I'm like working back on that strength. And if anyone cares about, check out my picture of my legs on Instagram at the moment. Because they look like roadmaps. But so now, so I'm getting stronger, and that is not me shredding. That's actually me eating normal and almost kind of being in a surplus of calories. But at the moment, I can't train, so it is what it is. Now, the last
you can always train, baby.
That's right. You're right. I'm going for walks and looking at weights. So that's my training.
Long philosopher walk, yeah.
Long philosopher walks.
Yeah, within 5Ks.
That's right. What was the last thing you said after in your kind of your rant?
So I was speaking, I probably touched on social.
Social anxiety. That's what I was going to say. It's always interesting hearing that, because growing up with you, I always thought you could like, and I've known you, right? And I always thought, I was like, man, he can talk to anyone. I can't talk to anyone, right? And it's always interesting hearing that, because I'm like, man, I wish you had told me, because we could have hit all the situation together. Be like, we could have been miserable together.
Yeah.
So it's always interesting, because I was the same. And I think I got really lucky because I sort of kind of fell into that acting realm where, being around very supportive people who made you feel like that you needed to be heard, right? So which was nice. So that kind of really helped my ability to, and I always say that, I was chatting to someone about it, say one of the things that I'm most proud of in the past 5 years I've achieved is having the ability to speak to people and knowing that people care, like feeling like people are listening. And that's a great ability, because being able to make things interesting and saying all those things, talking. I mean, we have a podcast now. So it's almost interesting, because I took, and same thing as you, took that one thing that I wasn't good at and kind of turned it into the thing that is my most sellable, I guess, service, if you will. Like all my things, I work in marketing, so I have to do pitches all the time, sales pitches and all that stuff. So I talk a lot, which is surprisingly the one thing that, just like you, I wasn't good at, or I felt like I wasn't good at. So I guess that's a little bit of
the restrictions of limiting beliefs all in your head.
That's exactly right. So here we are. So it's and there's always still a little bit of social anxiety, but starting to, as we grow up, I think you care less about what people think as well. So all those things add up to you become a better person.
Yeah, most definitely. And it depends. Yeah, I think maybe the shift goes from external to internal. Like when I was younger, it was more so about the way other people, like I cared a lot about, and I still do, but in a healthier way, I believe at least. I cared so much about what other people thought, and that's what drove me to, that's what drove the fear of it all, and that's what caused that reaction and caused the anxiety of it, was because I was so concerned about what I wanted people to like me. As a lot of young people are that way. And then as I started to get comfortable in talking, like for me, it was radio. I was doing community radio growing up, and I started to get really analytical and started to get really critical of the way I thought. So then the way I'm talking became a cause of anxiety. I'm like, oh, am I talking well enough? Do people understand me? So it's just like, it's really interesting how you don't realize how big of an impact these things have on your life until you kind of have eureka moments, if you will, and you sort of can start to unpack it. And just like anything, once you start to realize the cause of it, you can start to address it and answer it, and then all of a sudden it actually starts to go away. And then our dirty brains go, all right, what's the next thing I can move on and be fucking stressed about? But hey, that's also very much a part of life, and something we can learn to harness and use that. Like for me, I used to be a really bad study, and I'm still a pretty shitty studier, but I used to be terrible. And my excuse was like, oh, I don't want to do it so much, I wouldn't do it. And I just sort of wing it. But now I'm learning to channel some of that bloody anxiety into, all right, I'm going to try to learn everything. And hey, like that might not be the most healthiest thing in the world, but it's forced me to sit down and study for these exams and kind of take it and learn as much as I can. So it's all about a juggling act at the end of the day. But again, to kind of link it all back, it's that mindset, that growth and continual improvement mindset that you just can continue to unpack and kind of regress a lot of these things. And you constantly are facing these battles, but it's like as a young person, you have your ways of dealing with things in that young person mindset. You're almost coming back as a kid and as an adult. And I would imagine that's what a lot of psychologists have to go with when people come in and they talk to them about certain life events or the way they deal with things. They have to almost go back and understand why they react to certain things, treat it as a way, okay, you used to react to this setting as a kid. You now are an adult now. That's changed the way you think about it. You're trying to solve these adult problems with your younger mentality. So that's becomes a little bit of a what do you call it? Like something that's like natural. So it's like automated, right? So like you, until you address these issues or your way of dealing with them, there's an automated response that you would have done when you were younger, like dealing with stress or dealing with being told to do something you didn't want to do, and you're trying to do the same thing as you were younger. So it's just like constantly going back and constantly just trying to work on it and realizing that it's not always going to be your best day. But yeah, it is just beautiful when you can start to kind of have that more of a mindset. So I hope that's something that no. And like the old saying, what is it? Perception is reality is crazy, because you make up these realities in your head, but the way other people perceive you is sometimes so important, because you realize that how you're actually looking on the other end is sometimes like the gratification you need to know that you're on the right path.
Well, that's exactly right. It's the whole thing that Henry Ford said: whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're probably right.
Yeah. Oh, so ain't that the truth, baby?
Yeah. It's it's all perception, and they're kind of talking about what you were saying. It's all coming from childhood. Sigmund Freud.
Oh, Siggy, old Freudy.
Siggy, right? So he's a famous philosopher. So his therapy was based on. He's a psychologist, psychologist, right? He was probably one of the forefathers of psychotherapy, or
he was
psychotherapy. Yeah. So forefather psychotherapy, he talks about that a lot of our trauma is something. Trauma is not often defined well, right? So trauma can be two things, right? So it's easy to, in fact, I can actually kind of break it down into two aspects. So first way of trauma, of looking at it, is one, often we think trauma is an injury, right? So trauma is injury. Trauma is not necessarily injury. Trauma is like a scar, right? Trauma is what's left over of that injury, right? Mental injury. So it's almost like, whenever you get injured and you have that, what is it called? The skin that build up residue of when you recover from that cut or bruise, whatever it's called.
Yeah, like scar tissue.
Scar tissue on that, right? So that's a bit of your anatomy coming into place. So whenever you have that scar tissue, right, that's what you refer to as trauma. Trauma is not necessarily the injury by itself, but it's the residue left of the actual event that that happened, right? So that event doesn't necessarily have to be bad or good, right? It's just an event. So often when Sigmund Freud talked about it, he said, often many of the things actually are related to our childhood trauma, or childhood things that served us once. So for example, when we look at, one person is very is afraid of speaking. So what was it? The childhood things, perhaps the parents, whenever he spoke and spoke up, parents just, they didn't listen to him, or B, just whenever he spoke, they said, hey, play with this, all right? They were probably just being parents, right?
Yeah.
Not necessarily being mean. Even if they rewarded the child for not speaking, right, it still ends up being trauma, because now that child's behavior, the conditioning that served him then, he said, don't speak equals reward, and now your brain is still trying to get that reward 20 years later, thinking that if you don't speak, you'll get a reward, versus when you speak, you don't. And actually, that's actually very good example. So, a lot of ethnic parents, whenever you take the kids over to, I'm sure all parents, but especially ethnic parents, when you take the kids over to other families' house, like, kids are under strict restriction not to speak, right? Because they know kids are going to say something stupid, and you don't want to look like an idiot. So that's a small example that later turns into a trauma, right? Because kids
and that's
say
a big thing in the culture too. It's a direct reflection of the parents, right? Like if the kid,
yeah, that's exactly right. And the thing is, the interesting thing is, they didn't know this. So they didn't know what they were doing, because they didn't have this level of, and that's the great thing about having all these resources, that I'm able to sit here and talk about this and have conversation, but they couldn't, because they didn't have this access to this level of information. This was only, strictly forbidden for the elite, or the psychologists, or those people who chose to study in such fields. But now, I can study a book about Sigmund Freud and kind of talk about the ideas and learn from what to implement and what not to. Another one, which is the father of logotherapy, which is another form of psychotherapy, is done by Viktor Frankl, and he talks about the fact, and he was a concentration camp survival, and he talks about the fact that often so many of the things we don't really need to be fixed. We just need to realize what our problems are, or what our issues are, or what, we don't really need a medicine. We just need awareness. And is a thing. And awareness is a gift, because if you have awareness, you can even go get help. But if you don't know that the problem is there, it's like you have a broken tap and that's leaking inside the wall. You'll never know, because you can't fix the tap. You just know your house is slowly fading away, but you just don't know why. So, having that awareness is a gift in itself. But if you can somehow develop that awareness, and it's so hard, because someone who doesn't have awareness, you'll never be able to tell them that this is what your problem is, because they'll never realize. I don't know how you develop that awareness, and perhaps I'll read somewhere, I'll learn about it. But at the moment, I don't know how what I can tell someone, or what I can tell anyone that will help them develop that level of self-awareness and look into, why am I not speaking in public? Hey, because of this,
Yeah, there's another really prevalent concept in psychology called classical conditioning, and essentially it's a situation and its stimulus combined together. So stimulus happens and the situation occurs, internal or external, and it's a constant revolving door. So I think that's kind of the best thing with education is identifying what, or trying to teach and help someone, is identifying what the cause might be, not being too aggressive and not trying to, because at the end of the day, like if you're trying to change the way people think, you're actually trying to restructure their brain and everything else. Like that's one thing. Like going scientific a little bit, one thing that people don't realize about actions and about the habits and those sort of things, it's not just something that is, subconscious. Like, do we do it? Do we not? Your brain, whether it's stress, wherever these situations, whatever it causes, like you go into these very habitual and routine habits where your brain will release hormones at a certain time of the day, and then the cells are affected by those hormones, and then your cells actually carry storage. They store memories. So there's, even when that stimulus is not there, your brain's so used to doing it that it'll want to do it by itself. So it's just like when trying to retrain or trying to show someone a different way to think, you have to kind of think about, like, this is actually something that they're from a neuroscientific standpoint, their nervous system is doing without even realizing, whether it's eating a certain way or thinking a certain way, reacting, that sort of thing. So you've got to kind of like help them identify that, and then ultimately, like, you can only ever help people so much. They have to be the one that wants to change, and they have to start to change the habits and do everything like that. So yeah, it's really interesting when you understand how deep a lot of these things go, and how it's not just about, sometimes like that strategy of just doing it, get into it, start it, really helps, because like a shock to the system, it's like you're reintroducing this new stimulus, and that can help start things. But ultimately, when you're talking about real fundamental changes, particularly from a neuroscientific level, you're talking about things that maybe have been there since they were a very small child. It's like it's just like stripping the engine of a car and replacing a new one in there, and there's all these nerves and everything going off at the same time. Like how amazing the body is, and how adaptive we are, but also how used the body is acting a certain way. It can really make these sort of things difficult, and that's why people suffer childhood trauma for so long, because it's just something that, it's very hard to remove the memories of your cells out of your body. Like, it is very difficult. The only way to really get through it is to learn to use that, and to understand that experience was put in your life so you would have the strength to deal with other experiences. Other than that, it's just it's time.
At the time it was there to help you deal with particular situation. Perhaps it may not help you any longer.
Yeah, it's very much a double-edged sword.
Yeah, that's right. So it's always interesting as well, because you can look at a situation that was actually quite helpful at the time, where, for example, school is a great example. School discourages kids from talking in classes, right? And so one of the things that's always discouraged, and this is because we talked about talking and social anxiety, right? So in school, good behavior is a kid who's quiet, a well-behaved kid who's a quiet kid, right? It's funny because those kids also don't get awarded for it. They're like, oh, this kid's too quiet. But teachers continuously tell you to be quiet. But when you're quiet, they say, well, this kid's a shy kid. So it's kind of a double-edged. So, like, you see the school system right there is, there's no real thought put into what they're saying and what they're using, because once again, those teachers, keep in mind, they just finished uni, and most of them are roughly the same age as us. And there's teachers that are 22, 23-year-old teachers. What do they know? So it's always interesting seeing that as well. So school, once again, plays a big role into what kind of person you end up becoming, and what kind of conditioning that you keep for over the years, and car was a good analogy when you look at it. Like, sometimes even when you replace the whole engine and you realize, you're still running, dry, or you're running, there's too much fluid, because you need to rewire the ECU as well, because you need to rejig the ECU with the new engine. And sometimes what you said was true. It can be shock to the system, and all that restart of just going and doing things, right? And I think, like, for example, me talking, I didn't know that I had a social anxiety issue until much later into just actually doing it for such a long time. And when I started getting rid of social anxiety, thinking, hey, wait, hold on, did I have social anxiety?
Yeah.
Oh, wait, I did. So sometimes that works as well.
It's the like the lack of it not being there makes you realize how major an impact. It's like an injury, or like if you had some pain, and when it's gone, you're like, wow, that was significant. I got so used to it, I didn't realize how big of an impact it actually was.
Well, that's it. Yeah. So I think those are some good areas to look into, perhaps.
A little bit of food for thought, eh?
That's a little bit. I think that's a lot of food for thought.
Hey, that's the name of this episode. How about that? Food for thought.
Food for thought. Rebranded for 2021.
Yeah.
Well, it's actually been a very, very philosophical episode.
Yeah, we went
good
deep,
comeback,
baby.
Dare I say?
We came out of the gates. We thought we'll just leave the open book, and then, mate, we wrote an epic tale there. We had a jug. The jug was filled with our art, and we just poured it out on everyone. So I hope you guys enjoyed that.
That's exactly right. It's been a great episode. Check us out on socials: Instagram, Clever Dummies Podcast; Facebook, Clever Dummies Podcast; Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, iTunes no longer exist, I think. But yeah, Spotify, Google Podcast, and check out our website, thecleverdummiespodcast.com. I think I'm saying that right? It's the Clever Dummies podcast.
The CDP, baby. The CDP, Clever Dummies. It sounds about right. I mean, we did a pretty good job of naming ourselves that we don't have too many clashes, so I think they'll find us anyway, big dog.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So it's called the Clever Dummies podcast. Check us out. We are like the first one that come up because, that's how great we are.
That's how unique we are, yeah.
That's how unique we are. And if you actually need a new website with, with your design and all your stuff that you want to sell to stuff, hit us up. You can get a hosting on. Wait, what were the guys called again? SiteGround. Sorry, okay, I'm doing a horrible job at it. If you need a new web hosting, check out SiteGround. You can go to our website to click the little link. It helps us support us. If you need a website design, hit us up once again through Zero Media. We can design those sites for you and help you out on your social medias. Any more plugs that we would like to do, Lachlan?
No, and do a heck of a job too. Just kind of, particularly if it's an area of your business or part of your life that you need to get better at, and it's such an important time that your social presence and your websites are not just easy to use, but are also really practical and functional as well. And you're maximizing, your potential client database and your exposure and that sort of thing. So would highly recommend the amazing work done over at Zero Media, which we are a subsidy of, I believe, my friend.
That's right. Close enough.
Yeah.
And one more thing. There's two more things I would like to plug. You're getting married in 4 weeks. I don't know if we wanted to. So,
oh, of course. Great. Yeah, most definitely.
We forgot about that. So
no. I think as it gets closer, we'll save the content. We can't, as I said, there's a jug here. We can't empty the whole thing out. Okay.
Okay. Cool. Another thing I just remembered to plug. Your current fiance, your soon-to-be wife, has started a little business. That's right. Started a little business. What is it called? Do you wanna plug the name?
Yeah, it's called Charlie Made. So Charlie Made Sewing and Alterations. Look her up on Instagram. I believe she's made a Facebook page as well, but she's gone live already. So she's already in the working realm. She's very adaptive as well. So she can, if you've got a hole in your jeans or you've got a face that needs to be covered, she can do it all. She refurbished the gaming chair. She's making her own wedding dress. She's doing the decorations for all the weddings. She's fixed many a thing. So yeah, if you've got any patchwork that's needed, or if you want to custom make mask, for example, you can get a really cool design. It's just so many great stuff that she gets into. So have a look on the page. You can kind of see some of the things that she's made at home, and get amongst it and support local business. That would be amazing.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Lachlan. Thank you for your time. This has been the Clever Dummies podcast. I'll let you wrap up.
Oh, baby. Yeah, been very good. Episode 21 or season 2, episode 1. Thank you guys so much for joining. Been an amazing episode. We've definitely gone through a lot there. Hope you enjoyed it. And until next time, tell your mum you love her. Go get some sun, get some vitamin D, have a little bit of exercise, drink some water, and just be kind to yourself. Love you guys.